All right. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. It's awesome. I'm Surpherdave. Everyone can hear me okay? Cool? All right, we're good. So this talk, because of who I work for and what I do, I can't really disclose a lot of the things that we find. We did have a 0-day that we notified the customer last week about, and they patched it. So that's one of the things that we do, that type of thing. But before I start anything like that, I'd like to have my wife please stand up. All right. Happy anniversary. It's 10 plus years. Today is our anniversary. So I wanted to acknowledge her for that. You don't find a woman that will put up with your security crap a lot and even volunteer and do something that she's not even familiar with. She sat here with me and has no clue what most of you guys are talking about. So that's amazing. And so the standard disclaimer, I don't speak for anybody but myself, so just take that to mind. I mean, that's a standard disclaimer. So please, everything that I'm about to say, citation's probably needed. All right, so just a little background about me, and this is how kind of the PH ended up in my name of Surpherdave. For one, Surpherdave, like you can imagine there's probably 1 million surfers out there named Dave that they want to call themselves Surpherdave. So I put the PH in there instead. But I was a phone freaker from back in the old day, and my alias back then was the Gatekeeper because Ghostbusters just came out, and I figured that's probably not going to be sticking around for too much longer. But so I was on BBSs and did blue boxing back in the day because my cousins lived in Philadelphia and I lived in Virginia, so want to talk on the phone. I started my IT career in high school in '94. It was a hacking contest. The IT director of the high school said, anyone who can get into this Apple, you got the job. And there's like this little awesome debug switch and you run a couple commands on it and you're good to go. I moved from there into like printer repair and then into networking. So I did Novell, I did Microsoft, I did Cisco, I did Citrix, I did VMware, and then got my CISSP. And then I moved into data center management and then onto a CISO role. So that's just a little background on where I came from. But I had to make a really hard decision in my life. I know a lot of you guys, if you've done data center management or anything really hard, it's a lot of long hours. And you really don't have a life doing it. And my wife, she can attest to that, like 60 plus hours a week doing those types of things. Plus, if you manage geeks, you have to deal with so many issues that you normally wouldn't. Like I had one guy that would come into my office every couple weeks. It's like, hey boss, I need you to come down and stroke me. He would say that. And he meant his ego, but I was thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? So, that type of thing. And then, I had another person that was addicted to painkillers and had to deal with that whole FMLA stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this to myself? So I thought to myself, like, security people are awesome people. I mean, the community at large, the technical stuff that we do, you can't find it anywhere else in IT. So like, I can have this awesome career and have normal work hours, learn stuff and do stuff that is super badass. Wait, I need to figure out how to do this. So I Googled it, like a good Google dork does. Google has no idea how to get into security. So that's why I came up with this talk. Because for me, it was a transformation process that was very difficult because I'm still a noob. I mean, I'm a red teamer now, but I'm still a noob. And we all are, at some point in our lives, going to have to say, I got to transfer from this super stressful job into something else. So Bill Cosby is one of the greatest philosophers of our time. And if anyone doesn't believe comedians of our time are philosophers, they are our comedians. Our C.S. Lewis's, our Dave Chappelle's, everything relates to our life. So Bill Cosby told this story. He was asleep in bed, and usually his wife gets up, makes the kid breakfasts, and it does all these things, and she didn't want to get up that day, so he's like, you go down there make the kids breakfast. So he's going down there to make kids breakfast, and he thought to himself, man, I really don't want to be doing this. How can I make this easier and make it so that I don't have to ever do this again? So he's looking around, trying to figure out, and his 4-year-old sees the chocolate cake. And he's like, wait a minute, chocolate cake's got eggs, it's got milk, it's got all these things that I need for breakfast. So he says, yes, you can have chocolate cake. And he gives chocolate cake to all the kids. His wife comes down and is like, what are you doing? It's chocolate cake. It's too early in the morning for chocolate cake. Go back up to bed and go to sleep. I'll take care of the kids. So, Bill Cosby taught me one thing. A quote from him, it takes great thinking and work to keep from working, or as I like to say, it takes a lot of work to keep from doing work. Which is what I was doing. I was doing so much incredible work and getting nowhere. So I had to learn to do a lot more on the front end, so on the back end I can enjoy my life. So, you want to get into security, the real security profession, and I'm not discounting everyone else that's in other roles and stuff like that. The blue team guys, the guys that are defensive, super important roles, absolutely. The guys that are doing firewall stuff and everything else. I speak as a red teamer, and these are my experiences. So you need to learn some things. You have to be comfortable at the tools that you use. And you guys are obviously here to learn something new. Like, I learned something new this weekend that's going to make my job awesome. The Veil Framework guys, their new stuff is great. I've already used some of their stuff before to make sure that I can bypass AV, but now I've got all these other tools to use to do post-exploitation. So I'm generally thinking that a lot of people have a comfortable knowledge of Linux. And that's an important thing with any kind of security pen testing profession that you want to get into. You're going to need to know the basics of Linux inside and out. Kali or Backtrack, very succinct, but they have so many tools that you have to learn there. Next one, review conferences as soon as they're posted. Iron Geek is a great example of somebody that probably needs to not do so many drugs. But on his website, you will see posted after every event that he records, he just put another one up, I think yesterday, on a full conference that he records. As soon as it gets posted, find something on there and review that. Learn those tools that get posted there. Python, Ruby, and Perl. Pick one of those flavors. At least learn how to read it. I am not a developer, and I am horrible at developing. I got my wife into doing Python because I didn't want to do it, and I figured, she'd be good at doing Python. At least learn how to read it. The PTES standard is the Pen Testing Execution Standard. This is how to formulate your ideas with different attack strategies. That's a good place to learn. I'll give a shout out to the Samurai web testing framework. It's another Linux distribution that does, whereas Kali does a lot of network-based stuff and a lot of different things, Samurai is basically a distribution that handles just web application pen testing. It's got all the tools kind of baked into it. It's really nice. Build a home lab so you can learn these tools. Now, when I'm talking about a home lab, I'm talking about something more than just a PC running like VMware, VirtualBox, something like that. You need to physically have machines that you can test against. That's key because you're going to have to run, when you're testing these things, running exploits and things like that, or learning a new tool, you really need to use something like Wireshark to analyze what's going on, to kind of learn those tools as well. Because a lot of this stuff happens at a lower level of the OSI model than you would, running an exploit or something like that. So building that, I can't stress that more than anything. Like, that's where I learn my skill set. And then building your own tools. So fire up something like, I'm a big fan of Debian. Some people like Ubuntu. Fire up your own distribution. Use GitHub or SourceForge or whatever. Pull down the tools. Get them working on your own so that you can learn how those tools get installed. Because a lot of us get kind of lazy when it comes to like relying on Kali or Backtrack to, just do an upgrade and update when we need those tools fixed. Plus, if you're like me, Kali doesn't do the best job at handling everything. Like the 32-bit version does different things than the 64-bit version, and both of them break when you add something to it. So if you can learn how to build your own tool set, then you're going to be much more successful, specifically around things like Metasploit, if you ever get Metasploit Pro, those types of things. The Veil framework finally is, made it into Kali, which is great. But before, it was a headache to get it installed and working correctly. So learn how to do it yourself. And Cialdini actually came up. He was a person that's talking about persuasion, the art of persuasion. So you're not learning techniques. You don't take these tools and learn techniques because it takes several thousand hours to learn a skill. So you're going to have a lot of work ahead of you. Like I said, it takes a lot of work to keep from doing work. So what really suits your personality? That's kind of what you have to look at. If you're career building right now, or trying to make a change, or happy where you are even, what builds, what really is your personality style? Do you like building stuff up and making it secure? Do you like breaking things? Or you like controlling things? I use those three examples because you have a red team, or the first one's building would be the architecture side of security. Breaking things would be the red team, and controlling would be the blue and the white team. What do you want to do? Do you want to stop the bad guys? Do you want to replicate the bad guys? So really what kind of drives you? What makes you tingle? Explore the entire world of security. There's so many aspects of it. One thing that I'd love to do, or two things. Crypto, which I'm not smart enough to do, so I can't do that, and reversing malware would be amazing. Just this is an example. As you're reading all these industry articles, and if you're not doing that, then you're never going to make it pretty far. What's the most appealing thing that people are doing that appeals to you specifically? And I asked this question of my boss, what would you do when you win the lottery? He said he'd open up a small security consulting firm and help it grow. So if you're not dedicated to this, like if you won the lottery and said, peace out, I'm going to Barbados, I'm out of here, I'm out of the whole scene. If you think you win the lottery and you'd say, I would continue to grow my security career and help people become more secure, then that's probably what you need to continue doing. Okay, so now we're going to switch just a little bit to OSINT and target acquisitions, like I like to call it, open source intelligence. So when you're going for an interview, or you're talking, or you're looking at a company, you need to become in an assessment mindset. You need to start thinking, what are these guys actually looking for, and what can I say to make them hire me? So you identify the organization that is the best suited for you. In this case, I did move. It cost me a lot of money to move from Hawaii to move to North Carolina. For me, it was a great decision, and I love what I do now. But it was a big sacrifice because I left family, I left surfing, I left diving, I left all that stuff behind to come here just so I could, be part of that team. So you need to find out what organization is going to be the best fit for you. Now, recruiters are a major pain in the butt. They're going to send you everything. Hey, you look like you might be a great fit for our firewall administrator. I've never touched a firewall in my life. I think I heard someone said, earlier. It's like, why would you think I'm fit for that? So what you can do with the recruiters is actually take that information, copy it, paste it into Google, find out what actual company is looking for that job, then go after that company. Leave the recruiter behind because he's going to be a major pain in your neck. And you want to identify interviewers. Now, I'll just tell you a quick story about that. The guy actually that I got the job with currently, I targeted him, did my OSINT on him. I found out everything about his life that was online. Now, it might seem a little creepy, but whatever, it's online. That means everyone can look at it. and I actually found out he was speaking at DerbyCon, and told all my friends that I'd made in the security community that was going to DerbyCon, I want you guys all to sit on the very front row, and when he's done speaking, I want you guys to stand up and clap, and then afterwards, go tell him how amazing I am at what I'm doing. Hey, you know what? Now the guy knows who I am. So it worked really well. So think outside of your normal parameters when you're talking about interviewers and things like that. If you can find something to connect them with you, it's going to be, I mean, that works probably for any job, but that specifically worked for me. Okay, social engineering. And now, there was some massive talk on Friday night that was just crazy on neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, and by the end, my head was bleeding. The basics you need to know about social engineering for career building, you know, in conferences and social events. Now, last night, I spent, I don't know how many hours and how many drinks hanging out with different people. So if I don't remember everybody, I'm sorry. Apologize for that. But just a little background on why I mentioned this. You talk your way into speaker parties. So it was Black Hat 2008 or 2009, I can't remember. And the speaker party had just let out. Of course, I wasn't allowed in the speaker party because I was just nobody at that point. But I got my way in and started talking to Dan Kaminsky, asking him some things and learning some things. And then we ended up all going across the street to where O'Shea's used to be. It's not there anymore, and drinking all night and talking about more things. And then the sun came up, and Dan's like, I got to go on at 10. I'm like, cool. We had stayed up all night talking. So if you pay attention to those ideas, like I did, I was able to go up to him afterwards and say, you know what, it's a really great idea? DNS security. And that was just a generic thing. He's like, yeah, absolutely. That's what I've been thinking about the entire time. And now Dan's like, he's just a guy that's like, you know, I can reach out to him and talk to him anytime I need to. Really cool way to get yourself into a pocket of somebody that's a really influential speaker. Now, when we're talking about paying attention to speaker ideas, you see some guys here this weekend that were amazing, and they have their own projects. Hate to get going back to the Vail guys because you know, that's one thing that I really have used in the past. But it's all stuff that they've done on their own and they don't get paid for, and it's all open source. So volunteer your time. You need to get out there and work with the community to better their products. So you're not, I think actually I'm going to talk about that here in a few other slides, but we're going to, you know, when you talk about, hold on, let me just take one step back. With volunteering your time to work on a project, they don't just need the super badass hackers. They don't need somebody that can write the scripts for them. They need someone that can document technical things. They need someone that can run quality assurance. So that's another way to get yourself in with people that actually know what they're really doing. So that's the basis of this slide here. So not all of us, I'm definitely not a super hacker. So they need all these different types of supports. So find these guys that are really doing what they're doing and review their blogs, their talks, speak up, talk to them, because most of these guys are doing this out of the love of the industry. Get your name on several projects on GitHub, and now all of a sudden when you interview with somebody, they can go and look on GitHub like, man, this guy's all over the place. And you're not credited with, you know, saying, well, this guy was just the schmo that wrote the technical stuff. You're credited with everybody else on there. And super hackers had to start somewhere. There is a company called Secure State in Cleveland, and I know a lot of guys that have evolved from Secure State. They started there, didn't really have too much of a technical background. And after they left there, they're the Dave Kennedys of the world. There's 2 guys on my team from there, and they're super amazing. So they had to start somewhere, but they had assistance from somewhere else that would help them grow. So always, don't think of yourself as like, I'm not amazing, but how can I contribute to somebody that is amazing that can make me better? Now, crowdsourcing. We talked about this a little bit. So when you meet a lot of people at a con, you make an, especially like after having a few drinks, ask them to, what their email address is, or, can I contact you further? If you make enough connections with people, you can ask them to write a reference, a specific person that can, speak to what you've discussed. And approach people, have people in the community. I mentioned before the crowdsourcing thing. Have them approach, somebody that that's going to, speak to your expertise. An example I have is Raphael Mudge. I sat in through one of his classes, and he actually said, "You're pretty good at what you do." And I asked him, "Hey, could you perhaps write a reference for me?" And if you get a reference from, somebody that's a super hacker, I mean, that's pretty good. That's going to get you to open a few doors. All right, cool. Volunteering for the win. Now, for one thing, this conference, here is 100% done by volunteers, and they do an amazing job. In fact, I wouldn't be up here speaking if I probably hadn't volunteered to work here at a conference. So you need to sign up. You need to help out. The community is all about, giving, it's all about, volunteering is all about giving back to the community. So you need to sign up for volunteering everywhere you go. If there is obviously if you're going to RSA, which isn't technically a security conference anymore, you're probably not going to be able to volunteer. But any of these grassroots type things, the B-sides, the Carolina cons, volunteer and be responsible. You want to stand out. You want to make everyone know who you are and what you do, because that's how you're going to meet these people. Speaking at conferences is something very difficult. For me, I have a social anxiety problem when it comes to being in crowds and groups and things like that. I really have a hard time. I have a special cocktail that I use to be able to attend these types of things, and it kind of works. But there's a mentorship program at B-Sides Las Vegas, which I'm a member of. And I think a lot of conferences have something similar, where you can actually find someone that can teach you how to speak at a security conference. Because there's a lot of things that you need to know: how to write a proper call for paper, how to actually speak without sounding like an idiot, which I probably do, but I've been through the program. And this year I actually get to help mentor somebody, which is really cool. I mean, I haven't spoke at B-Sides in 2012 or something like that. And they said, "Hey, why don't you come back as a mentor?" I'm like, I'm not that great at speaking, but I'll be glad to help where I can, because I love to volunteer. And so that's one of the things that you get to do. And then you get to meet more amazing people that are trying to break into the security profession as well and make more connections. When you're volunteering, you'll get access to everybody that is speaking. So you have people here that are usually not as easy to get to if you're going to a Black Hat or a DEF CON, because there's like tens of thousands of people that are going to rush them. But if you end up being a volunteer and you speaker wrangle, or you're in charge of like security for like a speaker lounge or anything like that, you're going to have access to those folks directly that you don't get at a normal conference. So you need to make friends and influence people. That's an important thing. That's volunteering in a nutshell. And then you build and maintain your network. So the people that you do meet, you need to continue to keep those relationships up, because it'll help you build yourself and build your career path. All right, so this is questions for this section. I'm going to go into another section after this. Does anyone have any questions about what I was talking about? Because I do. I'm not even sure what I just said. Okay. Well, cool. So I wanted to break this out a little bit and talk about what I do as a red teamer. But I couldn't bring myself to doing it because I kind of need a job, and I just moved from Hawaii and I don't have any money left from that move. So I figured I'd talk about the previous job that I worked for. And it was for a large government association in the state of Texas. So take massive amounts, 254 counties, local government entities in Texas. And I like to call this a threat landscape, is local government. So the basis of local government is all these different people. If you look at a breakout of a courthouse, you have all these different folks that are elected officials. Now, how do you become elected official? An elected official just means you're popular enough for people to vote for you. That's it. I didn't finish high school, but you know, I'm pretty cool, so you guys vote for me. And it happens quite often, actually, especially in the smaller counties. So you have all these different guys here, and they all have their different opinions about how things should be done in local government. And everyone fights because they all have egos. That's why they're politicians. Why does any of this matter? Because you have all this information that is at their fingertips that's super easy to disclose. You got non-public information, stuff that should never leave, like tax information. You got birth certificates and tax records and stuff that's, you know, personally identifiable information, social security numbers, driving records, criminal records. And the coolest thing about it is, like, the local governments all have communication channels back into the Department of Homeland Security. That is a federal mandate that came down and said every local government agency has to be able to get back into DHS. What's the problem with that? So the internal issues of local government, there's a lack of education about what stuff means. Like, for example, I use the Freedom of Information Act. I've been able to go to counties when I'm doing assessments and fill out a form that, you know, allows me to get the information that I need under the Freedom of Information Act. But a clerk's office, for the most part, they don't see those. Local government, they don't have a clue what those really mean. Slide it across, I need every birth certificate for the last 20 years with social security numbers attached. Slide it across the desk, they give me back the information. That seems like a big problem. Lack of funding is a major problem for local government. Now, back in Texas, we had some massive problems and I think it goes across most states. What happens in local governments? You have unfunded mandates, and what an unfunded mandate is that the local government will set their budget, and it's set in stone, and basically they don't have any more money to spend. Local government says, hey, we need a special, or the state government says, hey, we need a special election called. And it's going to cost the local government $120,000 to $250,000 to staff and provide this type of thing that they didn't budget for. So what happens? IT just goes, IT director gets cut or dismissed, and we're going to go to a local mom and pop shop to do anything. Tax caps are another problem because everyone doesn't want to pay taxes, and the state government says, well, we want to do what the people want. We're going to limit what we can tax these folks at. And I know we all hate taxes, but the average IT director that I figured out, it was making $50,000 a year. And some are in smaller government, some of the smaller counties was actually $24,000 a year. You know, some of the bigger ones made more, but around $50,000 a year to run the entire, local government. So you're not going to get the cream of the crop a lot of times when it comes to IT directors because of those caps. They cannot hire somebody and budget for it because they have different caps, and that's the salary restrictions. Problem they had in Texas big time was any county that bordered Mexico, I mean, the guys down there, the sheriff deputies were making $18,000 a year. And the sheriff itself is like $32,000. So what happens when a guy says, hey, I'm going to run drugs through your county, you're going to look the other way, here's $80,000, or we'll kill everyone in your family. That's a big problem. Now, obviously, North Carolina probably doesn't have a similar thing, but I know that there is a lot of payments that probably go underhanded to get things moved around. And there's a general mistrust. Like I was saying before, there's a lack of cooperation within the government itself. The judge thinks he's the head of the county. The commissioner thinks he's the head of the county. The clerk wants something to say. The sheriff wants something to say. Everybody's got something to say. They're politicians. Everyone's got something to say. So what happens? You have bolt-on software a lot of times. Like, so the judge says, hey, I want to be able to see all the criminal records that are coming out of the jail administrator's office. Well, we don't have the software for that, but there's this add-on that we can put on there. So you have all this bolted on software, and every county ends up with a different piece of software that's all bolted on. You have the inexperienced or the missing IT staff. There's a lot of places that outsource all their IT to local mom and pop shops that have no idea about security. And then you have vendor hell. These vendors come in, they say, hey, we can do all of these things for you. All we need is some money. And they get in there and they start charging these fees that just rob the county blind, and the county has no budget to be able to do anything about it. And one assessment we did, it was a vendor that was for 17 different counties. Everything was just over HTTP. There was no encrypted traffic anywhere. And this was like between the jail administrator's office, the sheriff's office, the judge, the commissioner, the clerk's office. All these records were just in clear text. There's nothing being encrypted. And they're like, hey, you got the information you wanted. We didn't say anything about security. And then another issue is all the pissing matches that you have between these different government entities. I mean, it's politics. That's all it is, pure and simple. And so when you do assessments on these types of things, and I urge you guys to contact some of your local government folks, because this is a major problem, and if you can, volunteer to do these types of assessments. You don't have to, this is nothing that is like super technical that you have to do. It's all low-hanging fruit, like an open wireless in the courtroom that's connected back to the server or an Active Directory. You know, those types of things are really common, easy things to spot. The websites, I don't know if you've ever been to your county website. If you're living in a pretty rural county, your county website probably looks pretty horrible from like Netscape days, or maybe even like GeoCities. It's pretty bad. And they take taxes, they take, you can look up deed restrictions, you can look up GIS information, all these things, and I mean, it's just horrible. You just throw an automated scanner against it and it'll just break everything on the website. It's really bad. So if you know anything about that, or you know, at least talk to somebody if you find something, they're really, really bad. And basic social engineering attacks, they're very susceptible because of lack of budget. Obviously, there's no training program for anybody in the local government about what to do when it comes to social engineering. So walking in, like I mentioned before, Freedom of Information Act, here's your documents, sir, thank you very much. I walked into one place, this was a very successful attack. I think I did it in 2 places. I can't remember if I got busted on one of them, but basically I found out who the IT director was of the county, and he was going to lunch at a certain time. When I called, I said, you know, can I talk to the IT director? He's gone to lunch. What's his name? You know, so-and-so, okay? So I walk in, I just have a basic, you know, labeled shirt with VMware or something like that on there. And I slip a card and I say, hey, so-and-so said I need to go and check the server room from this company, I'm supposed to do it. They opened up the server room for me, no problem at all. And I just, you know, did a real quick dupe of the hard drive. Those types of things. They're not trained at all because they don't have the money to do it. Even the IT directors have no idea about these security threats. And they trust before they verify anything. It's very, very crazy. Because all of this information affects us equally. They carry the keys to everything that we have. So identity theft is a real issue and vector. I think it'd be a little harder to execute because you'd have to go to multiple counties to find out multiple spots of information. So I urge you guys to really take an interest in some of your local government. If you can volunteer and help, it would really, even if it's just basic security awareness training, it would be really helpful. So that's all I got. Anyone have any questions? If not, I'm Surfer Dave. No questions? Cool. Thanks, everybody.